Welcome folks, back to the Thermoquad Carburetor rebuild. Let's flip this over for starters before I start showing you how to dismantle this underside of the top plate of the choke or the air horn for the top of the carburetor. I discussed before never to set the carburetor down on this surface. That's why I'm holding it up right now. Just to briefly go over, after you've got it apart this far, I didn't take the shaft out like I'd mentioned in an earlier video. I always just leave it in. Just extra stuff that you have to worry about when it comes time to reassemble. The choke plate here, you can just leave it in as well. There's no point taking it out. Down in there was the accelerator pump nozzles. Actually, I'll do that now. I can use the float bowl and the throttle body assembly to help hold this thing while I get that out of there. There's really not much to it. One screw, and you just take that out, and then there's the nozzles come out in one piece, and there's a gasket underneath that, so you just got to be careful when you take it apart. There's a screw. Don't lose any of these small parts. Contain them in some kind of a container, maybe with a screw-on lid. There's the nozzles there. Basically, you really want to get this apart so you can get it nice and clean. And like I'd mentioned in an earlier video, there's a metal check valve needle, if you will, and you just turn it upside. Hopefully, it'll come out. You turn it upside down, and it should fall out. It did fall out, but it's hidden by the choke plate. There it is. You got to be careful when you take this one out. It's made out of brass. This one is a tiny little, it's much like the needle and seat in the float bowl assembly for the floats. This one happens to look like brass, and it's very tiny. You never want to lose this. They generally do not give you these in the rebuild kit, so be very careful when you take this out. Have it on a bench, maybe a towel or something, so if it does bounce, it's going to stay put. Make sure it doesn't get lost on the floor. Keep your work area clean, because if you lose that, you're in trouble. Okay, back to where I was before. I just used that. That was the helper. And down in there, you just, when it comes time to clean it, you just make sure you get all the grit and grime. I'll just set this aside for now. Now we can get on to, like I say, you can just leave everything the way it is there. If you really want to take the shaft and everything out, you can go ahead. Feel free to do that. That's up to you, but I don't generally do it unless I'm going to do like a real polished job on it or whatever. Or a lot of people, the more professional shops, they might bead blast this or some way of cleaning it to make it all nice, shiny and pretty. But generally, especially if you're running the original air cleaner, it covers this whole thing up anyway. The only time you see it is when you take the air cleaner assembly off, and that's when you see it's all nice and shiny. So I don't really bother with that too much. Just a scrub with a soft toothbrush and some carb cleaner. Okay, on to this now. Taking the underside of the air horn off, or the top plate of the carb, if you will. Start by pulling out the floats. Another thing I should mention too is, before you actually take this whole thing apart, is to check the screws and where they are for your idle settings and that. It makes things a little bit easier when you start it up for the first time after your rebuild. Forgot to mention that earlier on, but review these videos all before you start even turning a screw or anything on these, and get yourself familiar with what to do. So that it's easy at this point. You just basically take the floats out. There's the float pin there. This one's got the nail head style on it. Some have a plain pin. You just take those, and don't lose any of these parts. The float's not a problem. You're putting new ones in, hopefully. But these pins, they don't come in the kit, the rebuild kit. So you get those out of there. You got the two needles. And then from there, you can take this accelerator pump hose between the accelerator pump and the pump nozzle casting here. You should get a new one of those in the kit. That just press fits on there. This one's really grimy. Okay, then from there, you can take the gasket off. Get things out of the way as you go. What you'll find too is you have to get it over the center part here first, where the fitting is to go to the accelerator pump nozzles, and to get this thing off, or when you put a new one on, you kind of tilt it here and then pull it away from this fitting here on the accelerator pump housing. So there's the gasket. Okay, before I go and take the accelerator pump check valve out, I'll show you a real good thing to do. Actually, we could get those seats out. It's just another word of caution on these the seats for the needle and seat assembly. You take them out. There'll be a steel gasket or washer behind there. So you just basically, I really like to have a screwdriver that's got a flat shaft, or a round shaft rather, on it, because it's easier to spin. This one's got like a square, and it's kind of cumbersome to work it, but this is the one that I have that fits across both of the flats on the on this brass seat for the needle and seat assembly. You just get that out of there. There's going to be a steel washer in there. Sometimes it comes with it. There's like a machine shoulder on the end of this thing, and there will be a steel, usually a steel gasket or washer, if you will. You just got to kind of get in there with something. Sometimes they come out if you bump them. Yeah, he's in there pretty good. Where's my magic helper? Back to the bamboo skewer. These things are invaluable. They get a whole package for like $1. You just get in there and see if you can get the thing. It sticks in there pretty good sometimes. Just got to kind of work it, and if you actually tilt it downwards, you get a hand. There we go. There it is, right on the end of the. There's a little steel a gasket washer, if you will. That's what helps to seal actually seals the seat to the casting inside. Another thing I found in one of the castings a few years back was it wasn't machined properly down in there. Instead of having a flat surface for that that washer to compress with the brass seat, it was looks like it was drilled too far before they put the tool that machines it flat. And so you got to really watch in there. Take a good look with a magnifying glass and a flashlight or what have you, and check those out before you reinstall the washer and the needle and seat with the ones that come in the kit. I won't take this one. I was just going to take up some more time. So you just basically do the same thing I did on that side. Take out the brass seat and the steel washer. Okay, a very important thing on these. On here, these are the secondary jets, right here and right here. Now, there's two flats on them, and you just take an opened end 5/16 combination wrench, and I've already pre-loosened these, so you just break them loose, just to get them loose, and the rest you can do by hand. Really want to stress here, it's really important. Right inside here, there's an air bleed tube. It's hollow, and it's got a couple of holes in here, and that's what it takes the air from the top of this air horn and helps mix air with the fuel that these secondary jets are sitting in the fuel bowl. You never want to bend these things. You never want to break these things, or you can kiss this thing goodbye. It won't be good for anything. These things are pressed in. They're not to be taken out. Okay, so what I do anytime I'm working on these is keep the secondary jet covering them, and just finger tight in the threaded hole that these things thread into. Is keep them there. You can even soak them in carb cleaner with the jets in place. The carb cleaner will find its way in there. Just swish it around a bit, but you got to protect these at all costs. Okay, so just leave those in place, finger tight, and never set it on this surface here. These, if you happen to forget about that, these will protect those air bleed tubes that I was mentioning. The orifice size that is calibrated for the secondary jet is well recessed in the end of here. You can't really hurt them too much. They're protected within the actual brass tube that they're machined for. So keep those finger tight in there at all times, except for the final blow. After you soaked it in carb cleaner and everything, and you want to get them clean, you can clean them, but make sure that you're keeping it without anything whatsoever touching them. Don't set it down on this, and make sure nothing falls on it, because like I say, once these get bent or broken, they're no good. The whole top plate assembly is no good for anything at that point. So like I say, keep these in place as a protector. Those are your guardians. Alright, so just leave those in place, except for the final cleaning. Okay, so now what we got to do is get this accelerator pump out of here. not the pump, but the check valve in the end here. It's relatively simple. Make sure everything else is out. This should be out, the seat, everything should be out. Okay, so I just, like I say, to speed it up, I'm not going to take everything apart. Okay, so to do is you can get some blocks of wood. You can get anything that's not going to hurt anything, and look where watch where you're putting it under here. Don't put it on these two bosses that hold the pin. Try to find a flat area. Make sure whatever you're using is soft. Don't use any metal. Okay, so what I like to do is right under here, this protrusion here, this boss if you will, on the top casting is for the accelerator pump screw that I showed you in an earlier video. Sit it down on there. The idea is when you take a punch and you pump the accelerator pump shaft down, it'll pop this it'll pop the check valve out, but you have to have some clearance for it to drop onto your bench or wherever. So support it under here like so, and then diagonally, kitty corner, make sure you're not on anything that's going to hurt anything. So basically there, like so. Get yourself a punch. Even you could even use a common 3.5-inch nail that you use to build houses. Just take a file or since this is old, you could even use the point and just use a nail and punch this thing out. No big deal. So you just basically get the punch and tap it until it falls out. And then you can just flip it upside down again, and everything should just be sitting on your bench waiting for you to do something else with it. Alright, so there it is. And that's about all that's going to be remaining of this. Always, like I say, always keep the secondary jets in place, finger tight, and protect those air bleed tubes. Okay, here's the old accelerator pump. There's that's the accelerator pump check valve. This looks like a factory original. It's got this sort of orangey colored rubber in it. These are actually pretty good for a few years. They will deteriorate over time. I'll show you a rebuild kit in a future video, and it shows one machined out of brass, really nice, and it's got like a ball bearing in there, a steel ball bearing. And I think it's far superior to this. But this will last you, if you happen to get one of these, they will last you a few years before they start to give you trouble. And for the rest of it, there's the accelerator pump. You'll probably get a new one of these, or at the very least they'll give you a new seal cut for it. But generally they give you a whole assembly that looks just like that. And there's the spring. I should mention this too. It only goes on one way. It's a tapered spring. It's small on this end and large on this end. If I remember rightly, the small end goes onto the pump, and the large end goes down first into the accelerator pump cylinder, right down in there. So it's just some things. I'll mention that again hopefully in the future video when we show you how to put this thing back together. So from this point on, you don't want to soak the phenolic float bowl. Never soak this thing in carb cleaner. Just get yourself a soft toothbrush and some, you could even use gasoline, but make sure you do it outside. You don't want any sparks around. Never do it in your house, your basement, wherever you have a pilot light or any sparks whatsoever. Do it outside somewhere. Make sure it's dry before you bring it in the house. So this one you just use some solvent, common solvent, or some gasoline. Well, that's what they running in there anyway, so it shouldn't hurt anything. Just don't be smoking or let anybody smoke when you're using that stuff. Okay, so get this thing soaking when you're ready. Make sure all the parts are out, and you can let it soak, and a couple hours is usually good. That way you can go do something. And any of the other parts, you can always take a look at them and make sure that they're all in a safe place, and they're not going to get lost. There's only certain parts that come in the rebuild kits, and to find some of the parts, if you lose them or damage them, you'd end up like me. You'd probably end up buying a used carburetor just for the parts. So there you have it for today, folks. Hopefully in the future videos you'll be watching. Try and watch them all if you can. The more you watch these videos, the more you'll learn, just like I have along the way. I'll try to pass on just about everything I know about these things, so that you could even apply some of the the information on these two other carburetors as well. They're fairly, you know, they share a lot of features. Just the engineers have done it a different way in some of the applications and stuff. So that's it for the top section. With that all said and done, have yourself a nice day, and bye for now.